Do you know the 14 traits of successful chiropractors? We've interviewed some of the top chiropractors in the industry and have identified the common traits that they all share. Jump on over to www.chirobusinessmojo.com to get your free report today.
Welcome to the Chiro Business Mojo podcast, where we deconstruct the methods, marketing, and mindset of successful business people and chiropractors from around the world. And now your host, Dr. Richard Day.
Yes, I am Dr. Richard Day, and this is the Chiro Business Mojo podcast. Hello once again, and thanks for checking in with me. Well, today I've got Dr. Ryan Debell with me, who graduated from the University of Washington's Foster School of Business, magna cum laude in 2009. He then went on to earn his doctorate in chiropractic and Master's of Science degree from the University of Western States, graduating summa cum laude in 2012. He blended his love for business and chiropractic medicine to create the Movement Fix, a popular blog, series of workshops, and a clinic located in Lynnwood, Washington. Through the Movement Fix, Dr. Debell has traveled across the country teaching workshops and enjoyed a quickly thriving practice. Welcome, Dr. Ryan Debell.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today and spending some of your valuable time with us. I invite you to jump in and fill in any of the gaps I may have missed in your bio.
I think you covered it. I think you covered it all really well. So thank you for that.
Well, you bet. Well, let's talk about the beginning. Take us back to what made you want to become a chiropractor in the first place.
Yeah, it's a interesting story. So I was actually in business school. I was about to graduate from business school, probably about maybe 5 months away from graduating. And I had a couple internships at companies. So I worked at Washington Mutual Bank, actually, in their corporate headquarters. Obviously, they went under in 2008 in the financial collapse. And then I had other internships like at some other tech companies and things like that in their business department. I just didn't like it. So I had been having my own kind of issues with my knee, actually, and I went to physical therapy and didn't have a great experience. And then I went and saw a chiropractor, had a much better experience, and I got better. And I just thought to myself, man, it'd be more fun to do this. It'd be more enjoyable to do this than working in Excel spreadsheets, writing macros all day long. So that's when I decided to switch. So I finished the business degree, and then I had actually fortunately, I had taken some prereqs and stuff that made it a little bit easier to get into the chiro program without a lot of extra time. So yeah, that's what transitioned me from that into what I'm doing now.
So when did you open your practice?
I opened it, August of 13. So I'm 3 years and a couple months past now.
Wow. So not even that long, really. But, looking at your website and what you've accomplished in such a short period of time, relatively, is pretty incredible. So I'm excited to talk about some of those things you've done as we go forward in this. But first, take me back to when you first graduated. What were you thinking? What was your mindset at that time? And, was there anything you were fearful of? And how'd you overcome all that?
Yeah, I was going to actually work as I was looking at being an associate with somebody, and then I thought I wanted to probably be like an independent contractor instead. That deal fell through. A lesson to be learned: nothing matters unless there's signed documents. And so I thought to myself, well, I could go work for somebody else, or I could just go for it, because eventually I wanted to own my own business anyway. So I thought, well, I might as well just do it now, because I'd just go, if I went and worked for somebody else, I figured I'd go work for them, and then I'd start my own, and then I would have just been starting from zero, when if I start my own practice, I could be potentially several years ahead. I don't know that I knew enough to be afraid at the time. I think I don't know if I would do it differently now or not, because I like where I am currently, so I don't know that I'd want to change that. But I probably could have made smarter decisions from the get-go. I think that's certainly the case, probably for everybody. If you couldn't make smarter decisions, that means you haven't learned anything. But yeah, fearful. What was my mindset? My mindset was, I just want to start my business and see as many, and help as many people as I can. and things really morphed in ways I didn't assume they would morph and change. Some of that was just because of my own, like I went out and I did talks at all these different gyms before my clinic opened to get business, pent up and ready to go. So when I opened, I would have, patients to see. And, so that kind of led to a lot of other things, but, I certainly had smaller vision then than I do now. My mindset was much smaller, and has grown substantially, I would say.
Well, that may not be such a bad thing starting out when really I think it's all about maybe survival initially. And then once you get...
Oh, it's survival. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes, I had somebody explain to me one time, I'm just relating this to your story because you don't know really at first when you're starting out, and somebody said, yeah, it's like a bumblebee. Like, by every aeronautical design standard, a bumblebee should not be able to fly, but it doesn't know that, and yet it does. And so I think a lot of that can be, analogous to us starting out. We really don't know, and somehow we're able to make a lot of things happen. And maybe it's a blessing that we don't know everything from day one, because we probably would not take some of the risks and do some of the things that we do because of it.
Well, I think that's probably true to some degree. And, a lot of that too is there's no real, there's quote unquote business classes in schools, but it's not really, it doesn't really prepare people for the real world of actually having to run a business. Like, we focus a lot on how to treat somebody, how to get somebody better, but we don't focus a lot on like, what are real world strategies to get business?
Yeah.
We don't talk about that, and so I think that's a challenge that people kind of have to figure out of necessity more than anything. Desperation breeds creativity, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, did you have a lot of startup capital from the get-go, or did you have to scrounge and put things together?
Oh yeah, I had to scrounge. The banks wouldn't even lend me money. Actually, I had to co-sign to get my lease on my space. I used the NCMIC to finance my equipment, and then I took a business credit card and maxed it out so that I could buy all my startup stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I paid all that off in year 2, so that was good. But that was my startup cash. I was trying to get loans and stuff, but they really want you to have 30% of the loan up front anyway. So let's say you ask for $100,000, they want you to have $30,000 of your own put into it, and it's like, well, if you're just starting, you don't have $30,000.
Right.
So you can be creative though and figure it out if you have some help. So yeah. No working capital though. I had to just start accumulating cash from having positive cash flow. So
yeah, you got to use a little creativity early on for sure to get things rolling. Well, it sounds like one of the things you did that helped you early on was to go talk to gyms even before you had your office open and ready to go. Were there any other keys to your early success?
I think that was really the biggest key. People do a lot of they'll do a lot of maybe internet marketing for their clinic. And at least for me, I found that when I go do a live talk where I'm with people in person, it's so much more effective. So I think if people are looking for ways to get more new patients, they should consider getting out there in front of people. It's one of the more uncomfortable things, I would say, because you can't just sit behind a computer and pay Facebook to run ads for you. But in terms of actual effectiveness, it's much greater.
Yeah,
and you build strategic relationships. You build strategic relationships with other business owners. And if you do a good job with their current clients, then they'll continue to send people. So you build a lot of tributaries.
Yeah, I've heard that kind of consistently from guests. They'll say that, we live in this digital age where we can communicate, through social networks and so many other ways. We're so plugged in. But over and over, so many say, but being out there and meeting folks and making that initial impression and establishing rapport, that is the biggest factor in a lot of their success. And the other stuff helps to build a community for sure. But really that personal touch has not gone away, which is kind of nice.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The personal touch it hasn't gone away. If somebody did a talk once a week, if they made an actual marketing plan where part of their marketing plan was having one for a couple hour block every couple weeks in your plan, you decide where you're going to go do your talks and organize that. And then on the marketing plan is, once a week or once every other week, you're actually doing a live event talk that would do so much for so many people, because people don't know who you are necessarily, or they don't know that you're like a real person if just from the internet. But when you go live, it's such a different environment for people that are there to listen to you in sort of an authoritative position. And so I think people should do more of that. And, it's good for development of your own public speaking skills as well.
Sure. I mean, there's no better way to get better at it than to, sort of jump out live and put yourself out there.
Yeah, the only way you gain experience is by doing things that you're inexperienced at.
Well, let's shift and now talk about your practice as it exists today. Tell us about the Movement Fix.
Yeah, so I have, I consider the Movement Fix to essentially be three different pillars, I suppose you could say. Number one is my physical clinic, my physical location where I work with people one-on-one. The other pillar would be my workshops that I do. Those are branded as the Movement Fix workshop. And then I also do a lot of stuff online, videos, blogs, podcasts, as well as digital products and some physical products too. So I consider all three of those things to be the Movement Fix. But in terms of the clinically, I see new patients an hour, follow-up patients half hour. It's primarily movement-based and education-based, very active care versus passive care primarily. I use passive care when needed, but active care is certainly where I spend more of my time with people. I think that's good for a long-term strategy. It's probably not a good short-term strategy. Short-term strategy, I'd be much better off seeing all of my patients 3 times a week. But I think long-term strategy, and I'm thinking long game with what I do in each pillar essentially. Long-term, I think it's better to do the right thing for people rather than see them a bunch because you need to see them to make money. That's why, I mean, it is a business, but yeah, it's sort of an interesting profession that we're in healthcare, because if we do a good job, then people get better. And then they don't come back unless they have something else go on or they refer somebody. And, you're sort of incentivized to perhaps, especially early on when you don't have a full schedule, to see people more than you need to. So it's kind of a dilemma of, do I recommend that people come back more because I can get their business, or do I think long-term do the right thing, they refer people, maybe a hybrid of both, I guess, but I'm sure that's something that a lot of people think about early on.
Yeah, I want to talk about that real quick, if you don't mind. I absolutely share that exact same, I guess, outlook on patient care. I'd rather have one person get well in 3 visits and go tell somebody, hey, not only did I get well, but, I was taken care of and I didn't get the runaround and I didn't have to sign a long-term. I mean, I would much rather have a bunch of patients out there talking about how great I am than someone out there who, got roped into a long-term contract, paid for more visits than they really needed and felt bad about it. I just think that in the end, if you do the right thing and leave the freedom up to the patient, you're going to have so many more people out there really saying great things about you.
Yeah, and I think that just takes longer. I think that takes years of doing it versus the sort of quick, immediate increase you could get by not doing that.
Well, is it just you in the clinic, or do you have other people in there that work who are with you?
I have there's a massage therapist that works with me as an independent contractor. Other than that, most of the work done administrative-wise is done by either independent, like virtual assistant contractors, or some sort of technology solution. So I have a lot of automated emails, and everything is scheduled online, fill out the paperwork online, all insurance stuff, because I'm still taking some of it, but that's going to change, is done via software solutions instead of having employees and that type of thing.
Well, that's got to be a great cost saver, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, efficiency wise, and it's definitely a cost saver. And my software doesn't get sick and take days off and get tired. So
right, or forget. That's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I want to talk to you about your website. I always research guests before I invite them on, and I was just really impressed with not only the look and feel of your website, but it's just different than anyone else's website I've seen that's a chiropractor. And I have a couple questions to go along with this, but let's talk about just the first thing I have. You have a Start Here tab when the user can immediately from day one opt in to your newsletter that incidentally has over 8,000 subscribers. So tell us some of the ways that you use newsletter marketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're talking about the moveitfix.com as the website?
Yes.
Okay, got it. I have 2 other websites. Maybe we can talk about those later too.
Yeah.
So I have a Start Here thing. Like if you think, so my background in business was actually management of information systems. That's what my bachelor's degree was in. So I always think about technology solutions. So if I think about what is somebody going to do when they go to my website? They're just going to mindlessly kind of click around, or they're going to leave. But if someone sees Start Here, they go, oh, I'm supposed to go here. So I think about, what do I want to do when somebody's on my website? Well, I want to collect some piece of information from them. So I'll have them start here. I tell them to get on the newsletter so that they get my so they're on my email list. And that's something that I think people don't even realize happens, is that you want to build an email list as a business asset. It is an asset to have an email list. And if you're not collecting emails on your website, that should be like, you need to probably start doing that today. And so what I do is, I'm actually, funny that we're talking about this, because I was meeting with my one of my business coaches earlier today. We are revamping my email opt-in list to have essentially 4 different paths that lead people down different automated series of onboarding. So essentially, there could be a generic email opt-in where it's just they sign up to get blog updates. There'd be an opt-in to get different what are called white papers. So essentially, people probably do this. They don't realize that you sign up to get a PDF guide or 7 free tips. That would be considered a white paper. So you opt into different white papers, and then those people get that. So they sign up in their email. Hey, download my guide on how to squat. So they sign up. They get an automated email with the link to the document that you promised them, and then they go into a series of automation where they'll get another email like 1 or 2 days later with maybe a couple, hey, here's our most popular posts. And then a couple days later, they'll get one that has a low cost product offering. So, for example, I'll record some of the live events that I teach and sell those along the path of the free opt-in. So, like, let's say I do an opt-in on the shoulder. Then they'll get the shoulder document, and then a couple days later they'll get an offer for a video recorded shoulder class. And then eventually, after that fizzles out, after a series of 4 to 5 emails, they get put into my regular email list, which I email on Mondays when I post my new blog post. And then maybe every couple of weeks, an additional time if I have something else that I want to share with them, like maybe a podcast that I like, or some other thing that I'm doing or releasing. So that's kind of how I use that, because it's a way to keep people connected to what you're doing. And if you don't ask, people aren't just going to give you their email address for no reason. So having the Start Here guides them through, how do you use the site? What are the things that I'm doing? How can you follow those? And it makes it very straightforward and easy to use for the user. So that's the Start Here tab. Now, that's actually not even designed for the my physical office. So if you based my business off revenue, my practice is not the largest revenue stream. So my largest revenue stream is live events. So my site is designed for not local business necessarily. I mean, that's probably why it's so different than most other pages.
Yeah, I didn't even realize I wasn't looking at your main chiropractic site.
No, that is the main site.
Oh, it is? Okay, but not for your local practice, though, right?
No, there's one tab that says clinic. And then so when I if I think about how do people find my clinic on the internet, well, it's either somebody tells them about my clinic, like an internal referral or an external referral from like a doctor, like a medical doctor or a physiatrist or something. But if it's like something from Google or Yelp, those listings are linked to my clinic page. It's just a page on the site that has information about the clinic itself. But the traffic to my website is mostly not local. So I'm catering to that because it's in terms of long-term growth, that's more of where my interests are lying currently.
Well, one of my questions was going to be, how did you learn to do all of this? Do you have a coach? And you answered that question. You do. Is this a coaching group, or is this just someone one-on-one who's coaching you?
Well, I've learned a lot of it through my own background from business school, and I read a ton of books on self-improvement and business and sales and process and copy and marketing, and all that kind of stuff. That's what I do at night. Is in the morning I read for 30 to 45 minutes every morning on some sort of specific topic like that. But I hired a coach recently, 3 months ago, to help me write and improve the copy on my website. And for those who aren't familiar with what copy is, if you go to, let's say, a page that I have that's for an event, for a live event, the copy is, what you're going to learn, why you should attend, blah, blah, blah. That's called copy. And the way that you write copy is hugely valuable for the sales process, because if your copy isn't good, then no one cares to buy it. But if your copy is good, then people do care. So if you say on your website, for example, like, oh, we offer XYZ crazy technique, the patient who's in pain doesn't care. What they care about is, can you make my pain go away? So your copy should reflect what the pain point is for the customer or the patient or client, whatever you want to, however you want to refer to that. But yeah, having a coach is actually really helpful, because it ends up getting, I think we discuss ideas because you bring two minds together and you always think up things that you wouldn't have thought of alone. But yeah, I've been enjoying having a coach. It's actually really nice because I can bounce ideas off. I get more done faster. Speaking of that, I was talking to a patient of mine earlier today who is he owns like a large construction company. And we were talking about how most business, especially healthcare businesses, they don't have any sense of urgency. There's no sense of urgency. Like, we should be getting this done in the next 2 days rather than, I don't know, maybe I'll get it done sometime. Like, having a sense of urgency is how you get an extremely large amount of very important things done quickly. But if you don't have a sense of urgency, that doesn't happen. So having a coach gives me an additional sense of urgency, because it's like I'm waiting to deliver this thing to him and I'm paying him. So it makes me want to do it faster because I want to get more done for my money. But if you don't have that, it's kind of like, well, I can just kind of float around. And if you're floating around, I always describe it as a boat on the ocean, and you just let the waves push you wherever. But if you have a lighthouse, then you at least know which direction you're trying to move in, even, of course, because there will always be waves that push you around, but you know what direction you're going in. And so having a coach is good. He gives me a lot of ideas. We discuss books that I should be reading. And I just kind of find authors that really know this stuff, and I read all their books, and then I move, and then you just go down a rabbit hole, and pretty soon you go, yeah, 2 years ago I wasn't even thinking about any of this stuff,
Right.
But reading books like that from these guys that have been doing sales and self-improvement for 30, 40 years, you're taking like a decade of their experience and knowledge, and you can consume that in 8 hours. I mean, so you can develop an incredible skill set in a very short period of time if you dedicate time to improving yourself. But I think if people made a daily habit of reading 30 to 45 minutes of that kind of material over the course of the year, I mean, you're about 300 hours of self-improvement for skills that are directly related to the success of your business. And what's more important once you're out of school, the thing with school is there's these deadlines. Oh, the quarter's over, the class, the test is coming up, I have to prepare. And human beings are deadline-driven creatures. If you don't have a deadline, you're not going to get stuff done, because like 90% of what people get done happens in the 3 days before a deadline.
Right.
And you graduate from school, this construct that was created for us, and then you go into the business world, especially if you're going to start your own business. There is no construct. I mean, the only deadline is don't go out of business. So you have to find ways to build deadlines for yourself, to build goals, to build these constructs so that you can achieve at a higher level. And a coach is a great way to do that, I think.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I don't think it's innate in human psychology to do things to get ahead. Most of us do procrastinate and wait till the last minute and throw something together and hope that it works. And you're absolutely right. If you really want to get somewhere, you have to come up with a way to not be that way, to structure your life. And one of the things that my wife and I have done, and we've talked a lot about on this podcast, is find a way to give yourself more time in the day. And it really comes to because you mentioned books. I mean, one of the things we've done as we continue to grow our two practices is realize there are not enough hours in the day to become the people we need to become, to do the things we need to do, in such a short amount of time. And I like the idea of getting a coach and someone to hold you accountable and really leapfrog you way ahead, because we could all probably figure these things out given enough time. But to have someone hold you accountable and get you on through and really condense down, like you said, in books and through coaches, decades of wisdom and knowledge, it's a big time saver.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the biggest time saver that I've had recently was two things, time blocking and structuring, well, not structuring, but identifying what are the things that are really required for me to be successful. And most people don't even do that. Like, what do you actually have to do? What is the thing? Like, let's say, for example, if you boil down a chiropractic practice, what is the thing that matters most? And that would be probably new patient flow, especially if you're not seeing people 3 days a week. And so, 75% of your non-clinical time should be spent on acquiring new patients and not other frivolous things, if you're thinking about purely just the growth of a business. And so anyways, what I'll do is figure out what are like the real bottlenecks to growth. And then every night before I go to bed, I will do priority list of things that I need to do the next day. And I use it's probably a pretty popular system. It's called the ABCDE method. So I'll write down all the things that I need to do for the next day, and I know what I need to do based on having identified what the bottlenecks are and what are the bigger projects I need to work on. So I'll write all those down, and then you put an A next to the things that must get done. You put a B next to the things that really should get done. You put a C next to the things that would be nice to get done. You put a D next to the things that somebody else should be doing for you. And then you put an E next to the things that you shouldn't have been doing in the first place. And then you sort the A's, A1, A2, A3. Same with the B's and C's. And then you start making sure that you get A1, A2, A3 done before you start working on C-level tasks. So if you actually did that kind of self-reflection and prioritizing, you get 1,000 times productivity.
Yeah, if I could reiterate that, I do a different system, but really when you stop and you look at everything you have to do in life or want to do, they're not of equal power. So I really like the way that you prioritize and list that out. And I think when you do that, you realize what has to get done and what needs to be done, and the other things may not need to be done once you break it down. Yeah,
I think we do things that are easy to do, and a lot of times those aren't the things that are actually effective.
Well, you have been really successful at building a large following, or what Seth Godin calls a tribe. What are some of the secrets or keys to that success?
Consistency. I really think that's the only thing. Next week I'll be releasing episode 97 of my Move It Fix Monday series. And I release a video every Monday, and that's 97 weeks without missing 1 week.
Wow.
So that's a little bit less than 2 years consecutively every Monday. So I see a lot of times people they'll do that for 10 weeks in a row and then stop it and go, it didn't work. And, after I made 10 episodes, it didn't work either. I just kept going.
Right.
And I kept doing it, and I kept reading and thinking about what do people care about and what are things that I can offer the audience. I also do think, though, about who's watching my videos, who is listening to my podcast, and what are the things that they want, or what are the things that they struggle with. And then make videos about those things, because that's what people care about. I mean, if you think about your own behavior, why do you go to YouTube? I go to YouTube when I go, how do I do XYZ? Because I don't know how to do it. So think to yourself, what do people who should be following my page, what are they searching for? You know, how do I make my squat better? How do I make my hip pain go away? How do I, make my shoulders more flexible or something? And then that's what you make videos about because that's what people care about. But if you do how to do a certain adjustment, that's not what people, unless your audience is chiropractors, which means you have to know who your audience is. So just identifying who you think is or who is, if you do some demographic analysis. I think that, but the consistency and being around long enough, and I'm just in the infancy stage still. So I still have a long ways to go, but maybe episode 500, I'll feel like I'm there. But yeah, it's the persistence and there's a lot of, there was a lot of weeks along the way where I go, man, I do not want to make a video. I want to give up. I want to stop. And I go, just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. And yeah, consistency. You think about this. In the TV and entertainment industry, this is extremely well known. I mean, what's a show? Do you have any shows that you like?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I like Shark Tank.
Okay. What day is Shark Tank on? Like new episodes? Tuesday, right? I think. Is it Tuesday?
Friday.
Is it Friday?
Yeah.
See, I watch the reruns again. They do it every Friday, right? So they right there tells you something. There's a reason they don't do it 2 days a week. There's a reason shows don't release 2 episodes every week. This isn't an accident. They've figured out that they probably have the highest viewer rating when they have frequency of 1 day per week. Because people start to look forward to Friday. So if I'm going to have a content release schedule, and if you're trying to blog or something like that, and you don't have a content release schedule, it's going to be very challenging. Because these shows, they're like every, Friday at 8 or whatever time that slot is, they're going to be releasing a show because they've done this for decades and maybe longer than that. They know that is what gets highest viewership, is that consistent time slot, that consistent day. So why would we not take what's really working well in other industries and apply that to other forms of content? So, because you're never going to feel like writing a blog post. So you have to make a schedule so that it keeps you, again, it's deadlines. If Monday's coming up, I know I got to make a video. But if I didn't have that deadline, I'd be like, man, I'll do when I feel like it, which would be never.
Yeah, you got to make that schedule and stick to it. And I find the same is true in podcasts. If you commit to releasing it at this certain time on this certain day, you need to do it, or else your following is going to stop following you because you're not there when they thought you were going to be or when you said you were going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes a while to build that up. It takes a while to build that up. It doesn't just, there was a time when I had 0 people who followed anything that I did. There's 0. And I had to post the first video and it had, 5 views on it or something. I don't know. And that kind of sucks. And I think that's why people don't do it, because they don't want to actually put it out there and realize that there aren't a million people waiting for whatever thing they're putting out. And you put it out and there's nobody right now.
Well, I want to shift. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was done.
Well, I want to shift and talk about your specialty, which is really in the active sports arena. And, chiropractic is the ultimate box of chocolates. You might call someone up and they are a pediatric specialist, or they're all activator. We all kind of have our specialties. And yours is really that, it looks like, from what I'm looking at, people who are active and care about their health, and there may be even athletes. So any advice for those who are sports chiropractors or those who are new in practice and that is really the niche that they're carving out?
In terms of them trying to grow that, or how to see more people of that demographic, or
yeah, how should they network, and what are things that have worked for you in that arena? Obviously, we know the videos are, and you've done some marketing with gyms. Is there anything else we haven't talked about?
Oh, let's see. You could. There's a lot of events like triathlon events or CrossFit events, things like that, where you could go and network and meet people. That would be effective, but you have to go where they are. I mean, find where else do these people go? How are they spending their time? Who do they know? Who do they talk to? Who are the influencers in those groups? And then make strategic relationships with those people. It's like that's, for example, what I do with gyms locally is I've developed relationships with a lot of the owners of the gyms. And that isn't just like, I'm going to stop by and give them my chiropractic office magnets to put on their refrigerator. Right. It's like, and then never see them again. It's like, we're going to go paddle boarding and hang out and go eat and be friends. That's how I approach it. It's not, I try to have very authentic relationships with these people. And I mean, that's just the way the world works.
It sounds like maybe even become a customer of their business as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go to their gym. I'll go hang out with them. I'll help them too. Like sometimes the gym owners they'll text me and ask me, "Hey, can you come spend some time with me and show me some stuff?" So I'll just go over there at some point in the following week and spend an hour with them, and that builds real relationships.
Well, let's talk about a couple of action steps. On this podcast, we're all about providing actionable content for our listeners. So let's break it down for two different types of listeners. First of all, someone who's in school now to be a chiropractor or recently graduated, and this can be one action step or a series. And then let's break it down for the person who's maybe stuck in practice. They've been out 5-6 years, they've grown, but not really where they wanted to go. What are things that they can do, each of those types? And they might be the same things, but what should people do if they want to really come at this from a business perspective and things they can start doing tomorrow to improve?
Yeah, I think there's, I was reading, I forget what book it was in, but it was essentially saying that you can't directly affect your circumstances, but what you can directly affect are your daily habits. And your daily habits, when done day in and day out, those are what turn into, and well, should not turn into, but what affect your circumstances. So if you don't like, let's say you're stuck in a rut and you want to get out of that, you have to think about what are the small things I'm doing every day and how can I make those a little bit better? So setting up routines, morning routines and evening routines. So in the morning, wake up 3 hours before you see a patient. I can't not wake up 3 hours before I see somebody. I'm not a people person in my first hour. So I have to give myself some time, and I need to get things done. Otherwise, it's on my mind. So I would wake up, make coffee, read for 30 to 45 minutes, and take notes in a journal while I read it. Then I would do at least 2 tasks that I know need to get done that are going to help me move forward and progress. Because think if you did that every day. Like we talked about earlier, that's 300 hours of reading, and then 2 tasks is 730 tasks that wouldn't have otherwise been done. That accumulates and aggregates into something so big that it becomes powerful. So I would say that would be in terms of like if you're in a rut. I think if I was in school, what I would have done was started to read books on mindset and self-discipline. And I would have been trying, especially as I was beginning to exit school, recover mentally and physically by sleeping more and eating better and not doing really, really aggressive workouts, but doing workouts that were more maybe lower intensity because you put your body and your mind through so much during those years of school that you'd get totally fried. And it took me like 2 years until I felt normal, like a normal human being again. I was so flat. My affect was so flat. So that's what I think. But reading and self-improving. If you want to change circumstance, you have to self-improve and change your habits. That's the only way that you can really do it, in my opinion. So actually, my colleague and friend and I made a book about this that we just finished, and we just put the PO and the purchase order. So we're hoping that'll be ready on January 1st, and it's called the Daily Domination Journal. And it's going to be a 30-day workbook designed for, I mean, we're kind of designing it for chiros and probably also PTs. I mean, they're, very similar schooling and sort of situation. But it's going to take people through self-assessment. It's going to take people through weekly planning, daily action, and essentially how to do, the tagline of the book is how to do more in 30 days than you do in the typical year. And so we're releasing that on January 1st. So we're pretty excited about that because of all the things that we've learned. We wanted to make it very usable and accessible for just this kind of situation that you're describing. So we're pretty excited about that.
Well, we will link to that in our show notes page when this interview goes live, as well as your website. And you said you had some other ones that you wanted to talk about. Let's get to those.
Sure. So I actually, one of the other websites that I have, and this is where the book is sort of being under, is called Health Fit Business. And it's a podcast that my friend and colleague, his name is Dr. Anthony Gustin. He and I went to school together. He also runs a supplement company currently. He started a supplement company about 2 years ago. It's doing extremely well, called Pure Wad. And they have 4 products in their product line. And we got together. This was actually like 6 months ago. We got together and said, we should start recording conversations of us talking about the things that we're talking about. So we started that. It's called Health Fit Business, essentially for healthcare providers, healthcare students, and fitness professionals. So that's what we're doing the book through, is that company. And then we also just released and just launched a new website yesterday called movementproviders.com. And that's essentially, I guess it's more of a passion project than anything. It's a listing website where providers of any sort, whether that's a coach, a trainer, a chiropractic, a physical therapist, whoever it is, if they are working with people's health and fitness goals, we want people to be able to find them. And we want those people to be able to find other people, because I'm sure you get asked this a lot. Maybe you get emails that are like, hey, do you know anybody in Los Angeles that I should go see? Or my friend, you get that all the time. And so we wanted to make a really great website where any provider can list their services, and people can browse and find providers. Providers can network, and it's free. So we don't charge. It's just a free resource available for anybody who wants to list. So it's movementproviders.com, and then you just hit the list your business button at the top. So, that's we have a free listing, and then we also have a premium listing, which just gives some great additional benefits. But we really just, one way or the other, we want people on there because it's a resource that we think needs to exist, and to help providers get their name out there. We think that we're going to have a lot of traffic to that site, and that'll be the go-to place for when people are looking for those types of services.
Well, that sounds great, and so does the journal. We will, again, link to all of your resources on our page. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap things up?
Oh, I think we covered a lot.
I think we did, too. Well, look, I can't thank you enough for sharing some of your wisdom and experience with our listeners. I know they're going to find it valuable, jam-packed with information. Really, thank you for that. And we wish you the best in success. Thanks once again, Dr. Ryan Debell.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for listening to the Chiro Business Mojo podcast at www.chirobusinessmojo.com.